Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited. On today's show, we have Shershow Pena out of San Francisco. Today's show is brought to you by StickyAlbums. We'll talk a lot about some really cool ways Ellen is using StickyAlbums, but more importantly, you are going to learn some awesome, tangible marketing tips and tricks you can start implementing into your business today. If you are a pet photographer, you're considering adding pet photography to your business, this is the show for you. I'm so excited to learn more about these awesome tricks Ellen is using to make her phone ring. Ellen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. So I've heard really good things from the rest of the StickyAlbums team. They were like blown away how you're using Instagram and using all these really cool things. Instantly kind of are looking at StickyAlbums and what it can do on a larger scale. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. Let's talk about pet photography and how you decided to make that your niche.
Well, gosh, that's a good question. I'm going to try and not talk too long about it. But the short version is that I actually began as a fine art photographer.
Okay.
And I did fine art photography for, gosh, I went to undergrad and graduate school for it, so probably 10, 15 years. And what I was doing after a couple of years was working in these sort of, in these very demanding arts admin jobs that I had a sort of a medium to low level job satisfaction with, running home at night and trying to make art. And I had a decent career as a fine artist, but as most people know, you just can't make a living that way. It got to be exhausting. And I finally hit a point about 5 years ago where I had to really sit myself down and I had to talk to myself about what was important to me and what I really wanted to do with my life. And what I figured out in talking to myself was that what I loved was taking pictures. You know, I love everything about photography. I love digital photography. I love film photography. I love taking the pictures. I love processing. There's sort of no piece of it that I don't really love. And yet I had sort of structured this life for myself where most of my daytime activity was involved with paperwork and not with taking pictures because of these jobs I had to have to support my photography habit. So I just wanted to reverse that. And I said to myself, you know, what's more important, taking a picture of exactly what I want to take a picture of or doing what I love all day long? So again, long story short, saved up some money, quit my job, sort of, I see it in my mind as having taken a plunge off a cliff and began doing photography full time. And it's been amazing. I mean, I'm certainly not photographing the things that I thought I would be photographing way back when I was, 19 and a cool kid in art school. But I'm in my dream studio and I spend all day doing what I love.
Congratulations.
So I'm very grateful.
That is so awesome. Good for you. I love hearing these stories. It's so cool when people just, no regrets, right? Like, at least you tried. Like, those moments when people take the plunge, whether it's like a gradual dip your toe in, which that's right for some people. Other people just need to jump in. Oh, good for you. I'm so glad.
True. And when I went to quit my job, I kept feeling like money was a big fear. And I kept thinking to myself, I don't have enough to quit. I don't have enough to quit. And I finally had a good friend who said to me, okay, how much money do you need to feel that you can quit your job and be safe?
Right.
And I thought for a minute and I said, $100,000.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, that's never going to happen. So now what? And it was like the magic words, because once I realized that that was never going to happen, I was able to quit, even though I was in a financial position where I felt that I wasn't completely prepared.
Right. Oh, that's huge. So now what? I love that question. So now what? Just being really honest with ourselves about the mental roadblocks we put up that subconsciously we know we'll never get to. So it just becomes this thing we're always putting off. Oh, so powerful. I absolutely recommend you sit down and people have to have at least that, like, come to Jesus, like sit down, look at where they're at financially, what they can cut back on, because when you are working whatever your day job is, if you're waiting for like your side photography to come up to match that same level, it's never going to happen. You can't do both at the same time. No. You got to let it get up to about here, show that you got your chops underneath you, you've got a website, a portfolio, you've got a handful of customers and testimonials, and then you've got to make a leap and hopefully, of course, have some savings so that you can cover that gap, but you've got to be able to put all of your energy into something like that.
It's so true. Because the bottom line is nobody's going to hire you if you're not available Monday through Friday from 9 to 5.
Right on.
It's not going to happen.
Right. Okay, so in growing your studio, what were some of the scariest, like, earlier phases? And I also want to know, did you know pets right away? Was that a thing for you right away?
Gosh, no. So my problem has always been that I have too many ideas.
Yeah.
So when I first left, it was like food photography, wedding photography, event photography, pet photography. So it was definitely in there, but I didn't know that that's what it was. And I sort of took any job that came my way. I ended up doing a lot of event photography because I had worked in arts admin in nonprofits for so long, and that was sort of my low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
So I took a lot of those jobs, and that was great. That certainly got me through. I did a lot of product photography too, which I still do a little bit of when it falls into my lap.
Yep.
But I had one day when I was spending time with a friend, and we began photographing her dogs, and it just clicked. It was like, this is what I have to be doing. It was, I just kind of had that moment.
Good for you. Oh, that's awesome. So cool. I think there's a lot to be said there. I think it's, a lot of times we feel pressured to take any jobs that come our way, especially when we're just starting out. And of course, there's room to explore, to dabble. If somebody's going to pay you money and good money to take pictures of a thing or whatever it is, consider that job, of course. But as you start to grow your business and establish a brand, you can't have a brand that does everything, right? You've got to have a brand that does, otherwise you don't know how. There's nothing you can do really to market a company that does everything, because who's your target customer, right? You've got to really focus in on who your exact customer is, and then it can start to grow from there.
And I think also culturally, I feel like, at least in the area that I'm in, people want you to be an expert. Right. You know, and in fact, sometimes I'll even lie. I mean, this sounds terrible, but I had someone the other day who called me and she said, you know, you probably can't photograph my dog because it's a black dog. And of course that makes me laugh because it's the most ludicrous statement, but I didn't say that. Instead, I got really quiet and I said, well, you know what? I said, black dogs are actually my specialty. It was a complete lie. They're not. But I said it and she went, oh, interesting. Like, I've got the black dog specialty dog photographer. So in that moment, she's not going to go to a different dog photographer because I've just said it's my specialty. Right. So anyway, you know, that's like a specialty. Perfect. And yeah, it's a way of saying, it's just some wordsmithing there. Like, you've got a lot of experience shooting dogs. Like, that's why, like, I'm a professional and I know how to shoot. If I didn't know how to shoot black dogs, I wouldn't have a good business. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Awesome. Good for you. Okay. So, we'll come back to some of, I like hearing like about the challenges along the way, but I'm so excited to hear more about the marketing tactics you're using. I want to start digging into those right away. Okay. So the first thing, as you're deciding now that pet photography is going to be a niche, the general wisdom in your area, people are saying, well, you've got to get into pet stores. That's what you got to do, right? And we all get stuck in these, you got to do things that are expensive and risky and all those things up front. And whether we ignore our own gut or it was just something we have to do to check it off a list, we end up doing it. And so what happened why did you eventually decide to try to partner with pet stores, and what didn't work initially? Okay, so that's a great question. And, you know, as you said, when I started out, literally everybody and their brother said, well, you've got to hang your stuff in pet stores. You've got to hang your stuff in pet stores. I mean, I just heard that over and over and over and over again. So, you know, I'm pretty good with people, and I thought that shouldn't be hard for me. And I began walking around to different pet stores in the area. And what I found was, you know, they're small businesses. They're good at what they do. So they kind of have their wall stuff already set. So it was so much talking to try and convince them, please, 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 let me hang my stuff in your store. Yep. Then for the ones that said yes, it was really expensive. You know, because again, everyone says, if you hang something that's 20 by 24, no one's ever going to buy anything bigger than 20 by 24. So I'm putting all this money into these huge wall portraits, hanging these dogs that nobody knows on the walls of these pet stores. Took lots of time, took lots of money. The pet store owners got all stressed out about their store. Zero business. I mean, nothing. Wow. So I changed it.
What a good lesson. What a huge lesson.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I didn't change it immediately. I mean, I probably spent a couple of weeks thinking, well, that didn't work, and just completely moving on.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of able to get over my ego enough to revisit it and figure out what about it didn't work.
Good for you.
So now what I do is I approach people, and often now they actually approach me. Sometimes it's a current client or someone who's just heard about me from a friend of theirs. We photograph the owner's dog. And I basically say to them, I will give you a free shoot for your dog. Then what I'll do is I'll give you a friends and family discount. What that means is when you come into my studio, because I do all in-person sales sessions, you come into my studio for an in-person sales session, you'll get a 15% discount off anything that you order. But if you hang it in your store, it's a 50% discount. So that 50% discount completely covers my wholesale cost, and I make a little money off of it. So now I'm getting paid to put something up in a store, which is advertising for me, as opposed to me losing money on it. The other thing that I do is I also give all the people who do it, I'm going to open it up right now, I give them all a free sticky album. What this now means is that when people walk into their store, it's the owner's dogs on the wall, they love it, they talk about it, and then they pull out the sticky album and they begin showing the slideshow of all their images that I made that all have my name on it.
Yeah.
So it's like gold. And they're excited about it.
Right.
They love it.
Yeah. That's so fantastic. I think it's such a good example of how the older mindset, the older models of marketing used to cut it. They used to be good enough to cut it. But now we are so bombarded with so many things. Somebody's walking around a pet store. There's so much going on the shelves. How are they going to take the time to look at what's on the wall and to think even that that's been done by somebody else, like a photographer that's local? That's probably just shipped in from the corporate whatever. I'm not even going to, it's just a picture of a dog, right? Because of the context of it. And nobody's going to draw attention to it because it's just somebody's dog. It blends into the background.
Exactly.
But what's so powerful with sticky albums is that people show pictures of themselves or people or animals that they care about, right? Yep. That nobody's going to find your portfolio on your website and go share it with 100 people. But they'll share pictures of themselves or pictures of their animals nonstop.
Absolutely, and it's that personal connection. Yeah. It's that now you've given the owner of the store a personal connection to what's on the wall and what's in their phone, and they can't wait to show their customers. They're excited about it. The other thing that I just want to add real quickly that I did find is that I did a similar thing in a very fancy eye shop in a sort of a fancy neighborhood of San Francisco, and I actually got more referrals from that eye shop than I did from the pet stores. So I think again, when I began, everyone said, oh, call pet stores, call pet groomers. And what I actually find was that prevailing wisdom, for better or for worse, wasn't always true. Yep. That often I get more business if I go outside of my niche.
I was talking to somebody about who does small trade shows, like just whether it's networking events or other, like let's say it's a trade show about like a banking trade show, but it's local or something, right? Mm-hmm. I've heard of photographers doing really well because instead of going to like a bridal show or a pet show where you're competing with 20 other photographers who are there, you go to this other weird show and you're the only photographer, right?
It's so
you
true.
Stick out. Like novelty is so powerful. Mm-hmm. When you're at a pet store, pet pictures just blend in. But when you're at an eye doctor, like, oh my God, it's so stark. The contrast really pops out. And of course, if it's the owner's dog, they can't stop talking about it. Genius. I love it. It's got all of the right variables for a really good marketing tactic.
They think it's their idea. Like people in an eye store haven't heard of dog photography. So right. I had people calling being like, I was trying to think of a present for my wife. This is perfect. Who would ever think of a dog photography gift as a present? So it feels unique for them. Yep.
So do you have business cards that are posted? What else do you put next to the pictures that you frame, the big ones?
So I do two things. First, I put a little plaque up, and it's pretty much similar to what you might see if you ever go to a gallery show, although it's a little bit larger. And I do like a metal print, basically, that you can get a Bay photo.
Yep, I love them.
That has all my information on it. I also leave cards, and I go back and I visit. I go in, I say hello a couple of times a year. If I see that they have an event, I'll always attend their events.
Yep.
I take any chance I can to spend a little bit of money there, and then I refill my cards consistently.
So smart. Yeah, people. I think it's such a good lesson here is instead of just letting that tactic fall flat, it's really. I'm really impressed with your ability to say, okay, there's still something here. I just have to tweak it. What didn't work? Why didn't this work? And to stick with it. That's huge. And I know whether you're in pet photography or not, people listening can use that determination to look at our marketing strategies and not get discouraged right away. To stick with it. To start with a morsel of the things that we know really matter, making it personal, and partnering with people and other small businesses, and then building off of that and sticking with it. It's because it's not the same things aren't going to work everywhere, but you stick with it and listen to your gut and experiment, and pretty soon you're going to find stuff that works like this. And then you've got something that works. Don't ignore it. Go back. It's just like there's this analogy I like to use as creatives. We love starting things, right?
Yes.
We get so distracted by starting new things. Yes, leverage that. That's always a strength of ours, but it can also be a weakness. Because if we imagine building one of these relationships with the eye doctor, or the eyeglasses store, whatever it might be, that took a lot of energy up front, a lot of investment. And it's like getting a merry-go-round spinning that first time, right? You really, when it's stopped, all of this energy goes into getting it moving. But now, once it's spinning, all you've got to do is stop in once in a while, say hi, refill your business cards, and it keeps it spinning. It keeps it spinning. You show up to an event, it keeps it spinning. It doesn't take nearly as much energy, and it keeps it spinning year-round, bringing you new business.
Yep.
So powerful.
And I'll just bring it back onto StickyAlbums. You know, I did this at a dog groomer's in a neighborhood in San Francisco about a year ago, and I just went back. Gosh, I think it was Sunday night they had an event. So I went back to the event, and I was talking to a few people who were there. And of course, my images are on the wall. So I was able to say, those are my images. And then I had people asking me about what I do. And I would give them my business card. But, you know, my card only has one picture on it. So it can only do so much. But after I gave them my card, I have my phone with me. So I was able to open up my phone and show these people a different shoot that I had done than I had on my phone, one-on-one. They grab my phone, they're looking at the StickyAlbum slideshow, they see that they can share directly over Facebook and Pinterest, and they can email it to their parents, the dog's grandparents, and they just get so excited. So, you know, again, for better or for worse, the way that my business is, it's so based on one-to-one interaction. Probably 75% of my clients I get because I meet them one-on-one. But I get them because I have a whole shoot I can show them on my phone.
Yep.
And I can say to them, you can have your own custom mobile phone app. And they get like so excited, it's a little ridiculous.
I love hearing that. That's so fantastic. And I think this has been huge in all niches of photography. I like teasing like new moms, new parents love doting and sharing all of their baby pictures, right? Well, I think that dog owners and pet owners can be right up there with how much they love to show off pictures of their pets. Like it is, they become your walking, talking billboards. Everywhere they go, they can't help but talk about and show off their pictures. So huge.
It's so true.
And you talk about how important it is to have those one-on-one interactions with potential customers, and it's the personal connection that made the difference in the versus just putting pictures on the wall versus connecting with that person and taking pictures of their dog, not just any dog, but that person's dog. It's that personal connection that matters. It's the story they can tell now. And what I like reminding people is when you and your clients are out showing off a sticky album, yes, the Pinterest, Facebook, all of email, texting, all of that cool stuff it helps. Yes, that's why it's there. It's a no-brainer, and it works great. But I believe what really drives new business is the in-person conversation. So when your client hands their phone to their friend who also has dogs, what is that client talking about, right? They're telling the story of what it was like working with you. Oh my gosh, I didn't think that, like, nobody's ever gotten good pictures of my darling because she's black. I can't take, like, the black fur never shows. I've never had good pictures. And look at this. Can you, like, I had no idea that she had the great lighting and this, the dog was hyper at first, but she knew just what to do to settle her down. That story is so much more memorable than anything else, right? That person, whether it just sticks out. That's the kind of marketing, that high touch relationship marketing that works.
You're absolutely right. And I think, people, with the internet and with Facebook and everything else, people can get really any object, right? I remember like when eBay was first started way back 10 million years ago, and you collected, I don't know, antique dolls. Now you can find any doll you wanted, right? So now you can find anything on the internet. But what you can't get is that experience. And people really love the experience. That's really a lot of what they're getting. Absolutely.
Oh, well said. Yeah, things are a commodity. It's just you can't go buy an experience on Amazon Prime yet.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Huge. I love it. Okay, so keeping it personal. Now you've transitioned and you use this similar strategy with other initiatives as well. So working with like staffs at the dog rescue, something like that. Just tell that story. How does that work?
Okay, so I volunteer at a dog rescue. It's called Muttville Senior Dog Rescue. It's in San Francisco, and I just want to give them a shout out because they're an incredible place.
Yes.
They bring in dogs that are 7 years or older, and these are all dogs that when a dog is 7 years or older, typically when it goes into a shelter, it's put down almost instantaneously because it's considered unadoptable. So they're an amazing organization that has really changed how people think about senior dogs and has just adopted and saved so many senior dogs. So I volunteer there twice a month and I photograph their dogs for their website. And it's just something that I really love to do. At the same time, I figured out at some point that January was my slow month. So every January, things would like grind to a halt and I would have nothing to do. So last year, what I did is in mid-December, I sent an email to all the staff members at Muttville Senior Dog Rescue. And I said, I'm giving all of you a holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah present. And it's a free shoot for your dog. I brought each one of them in here in January, did a whole shoot for their dog. What they got from that is they got, I think, 3 8x10 prints. Some of them bought some additional items as well. And they also got a free sticky album. So what this now means is with me doing nothing, I have 6 or 7 people who work at a dog rescue, which means that they're always around dog people. They're going to dog fundraisers. There are dog adoption events. They're in dog stores. These are dog world people. And they've got their sticky album of their adopted dog, and they're showing it to everybody and their brother, left and right. And they don't know that they're advertising for me. They're having fun with it.
Of course.
They got a present. So again, I mean, I make the connection back to working with the dog stores because when I sit down to figure these out, I think to myself, okay, what's a win-win situation? Because if I had gone to someone at the dog rescue and I had said, will you tell everybody that you meet at a fundraiser about me and how great I am? They might do it, but they would be doing me a favor. It would be work. This creates a win-win situation. I win and they win. Yes. Same with the pet stores. Yep. I've created a win for them. I'm not asking them to do work for me.
Yes. This is how you can compete against other businesses too. Like when this is something that somebody cannot just go and copy tomorrow. Like it has to be authentic, and that's the reality. This is not like a get rich quick scheme. This is not a thing you can manipulate. It takes hard work, dedication, investment in your energy. But when you pick and do something that you're passionate about, like you are already getting something out of just supporting this awesome organization, number one. And that's why you're there, to make a difference and to support a great cause. And when we find these perfectly matched win-wins, it's so perfect because somebody else who just wants to come into your market and offer cheaper, better different pet photography, they can't just go get that relationship tomorrow. It takes time. And if you're trying to build a business for the long term, you look at the ROI on this, it just gets ridiculous, right? Within the first 30 days, what's the ROI? Not much. Within a year later, what's the ROI? Ridiculous, right? It just keeps snowballing bigger and bigger and bigger. And so when you are just starting out, it can be hard to think about putting in, like, investing in your business, investing in relationships for the slow months, for next year, for the year after that, because we get so focused on paying the bills this month.
It's so true. Right? It's so true. And I want to emphasize that this wasn't a dog rescue that I just walked into. I mean, I had been photographing there twice a month for about a year. Yeah. You know, and so in some regards, I knew the dogs I was going to be photographing. Yep. I adored them. I had a sense of their personalities. You know, it was an investment that I made in them. And I didn't go in on the first day of volunteering thinking, in January, I'm going to hit them up.
Exactly.
I went in thinking, I'm lucky enough to get to go to work every day and do a job that I love. Yeah. So I better be giving back.
Yes.
I absolutely have to.
Oh, good for you.
And I love it. I mean, these dogs they're old, they're gentle, they're sweet, they're loving, they need you. You know, it wasn't as if I had spent the whole year sort of, you know, grinding along. It's something that I enjoy and that I get a lot out of on a really personal level.
And so for people listening, I suggest that you sit back and you look at the relationships you've already have, the ones you've already established like this, and think about how can you surprise them? How can you go above and beyond what they would never expect you doing, and to create a gift like this? Yeah. Right?
I think that's a great point. And I think we all have those. I mean, I think we sort of mentioned the eye place that I had been to. That was an eye place that I'd actually been going to for 6 or 7 years. So it was a relationship I already had. Yep. But when I started my business and people kept saying pet stores, pet stores, pet stores, it didn't even occur to me that I had this great relationship at a really high-end eye store with people that had disposable income coming in every single day. It took me, I think, 3 or 4 years to realize I already had that connection. Right. So we often have a lot more than we think we have.
Oh, great point. Great point. Don't start thinking about, okay, what are all the places I have to go start meeting tomorrow? You absolutely do that, but you look at what's already there. Look at the relationships you already have built where you wouldn't even think of the opportunity. But if you have a relationship with people, I think that is the places where we need to start, because the relationship, the connection, relationship economy, I think is what some people call it. That is what matters more than any other thing. Like, it's the word of mouth, in-person referrals that drive not just our business, but almost all small businesses really rely on that. So true. One thing I wanted to go back to, especially when working with other businesses, is not being afraid to charge for stuff. I think that what a sweet little tweak to that. Like, who'd have thunk that I'm giving away the house and the kitchen sink and it's not working? Maybe I'll charge. Maybe instead of this being purely a marketing play, this is actually something I can make some money on also. And I think it changes the conversation, and it has people respect you more, right? They take you more seriously. They automatically, even subconsciously, start respecting your time because they're paying something for it, right? And you structure it, whether it's high school seniors. I've heard this time and time again. People who are just doing high school seniors make the mistake of just giving away everything to their models, right? Everything's free, and they think that people are going to come running. Well, free isn't worth anything. It's hard. People stop attaching any sense of value if they're not giving you anything in exchange for it. So don't be afraid to charge, even when it's your marketing. And I think you frame it so well, where you get a discount, 15% off for stuff for you, and for stuff for your that we're going to hang up and we're going to put in your business, that's half off.
Yep. And I think you made a great point, because, you know, one of the mistakes I did make when I began was doing things for free. Right. And there's something odd that happens inside people's heads that I will never understand. But when you say something is free, they value it as nothing. Nothing. And in fact, I had maybe 2 or 3 shoots that early on I gave away for free. People didn't even show up.
Yes.
They'd call me at the last minute and say, oh, I can't come. You know, I want to go on a hike instead. And I'd be like, what? But this was free. I don't understand. As soon as I began charging, but saying you get a friends and family discount for items for your own home, and you get a 50% discount for things that are going to hang in your business, suddenly they're on top of it.
Yes.
Here, they're on time. They've got their contract signed. So there is a funny psychological thing. Free really doesn't work.
It's
People
so weird. Like
to undervalue it.
There's a technical analogy here. Like in the App Store, all of the free apps everywhere. Think about how often, if you've ever installed the free apps that they're just like one-offs or whatever, think of how often you use them versus the ones you would pay for, right?
So
we
true.
go back and forth to the ones that we pay. You get a book for free, you're like, I'll read that later. There's no urgency. But you paid for $20 for a book, I'm going to read the book. So there's definitely a science there, and it's just right there for the picking for us as marketers to leverage that very simple tactic. Awesome. What other advice do you have for people who are in the pet photography scene? If they're considering adding this to their business, what can you share for somebody who's early on?
I mean, I would think that the main thing is that, you know, although I know that I talked about how when I showed in our example, having my stuff up in the eye store was really helpful, in the optometry store rather, that was really helpful.
Yep.
I really think the way to start is in dog world.
Yeah.
You know, the dog community in any city tends to be really tight and really insular.
Yes.
And in fact, the very first thing I did before I even quit my job is I had a friend of a friend who owned a dog school. So I offered to volunteer for her. She paid me. I didn't say I would do it for free. I think I worked for something like $10 an hour, which, you know, when you're 37 years old is really like nothing, especially in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
But I offered to work for her for like $10 an hour, and I assisted her in 2 or 3 of her classes that she was doing for dogs. So it was a great way for me to kind of get familiar with the dog world, kind of learn about dogs, how to make a dog who can't sit, how to be gentle with dogs, how to talk to dogs. But it also got my face in front of all these people who had just bought these new puppies. So then, when on the last day of class, I came in and I had my cards, it was easy for me to give my cards out. Also, because I had been so dedicated to doing this, the teacher who was teaching the class, who I had volunteered for $10 an hour, I mean, it's like nothing, she wanted to help me. She felt invested in me. So she, on the last day of class, made a big announcement. You know, Ellen's been here all session. She's actually a dog photographer. You know, she's giving all of you a 15% friends and family discount. And that actually, I mean, now that we're talking about it, that really was one of the very first things that I did. And so it was a great way just to kind of get familiar with what was going on. You know, I think that one thing about dogs that I think is important to keep in mind is that everybody thinks they know everything about dogs, right?
Yeah,
So you've grown up with dogs, we've met dogs. If you like dogs, you think that you know everything.
Yes.
In fact, there are some little tricks that you can learn that can really help you to photograph them well. And being in that class where I was watching people teach these naughty puppies how to do things was really helpful for me. So again, it was another win-win. I won because I was learning about dogs and I was getting my face in front of dog people.
Yep.
The dog school won because they were getting a person to basically, practically free help them out in class.
Right.
And the people who were in the class with their dogs, they thought they were winning because they were like, oh, I'm on the ground floor with this photographer. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it comes back to when you structure a business with pricing, with in-person sales that supports you in doing these, this is all part of it, right? If you are, if I can see a lot of photographers out there who would, to play devil's advocate, would listen to this story and go, well, I've got bills to pay. I'm only averaging a few $100s a session. How can I afford to go spend several days like on this reoccurring dog training thing? Why can't I just show up one day? It's like, well, it makes all the difference, right?
It does.
Just being seen in your community, like having them, and the difference of you offering your business card on the last day of class versus just popping in makes all the difference in the world. I think, who's this like, no, like, I don't even, you're a stranger. I don't know you. We're busy right now, right? Versus, oh my gosh, you do photography. That is so awesome. Like, you're a person that they know and just care about because you're in their space and you care about something that they care about, right?
Absolutely. In any case, I think that, you were talking a minute ago about people who only make a couple $100s in their sessions.
Right.
When I first started, I did only make a couple $100s. When I began doing, and I was working out of my home. When I began doing in-person sales sessions out of my home, I literally went from making like 100, 150 per session in sales to almost $1,000 in sales overnight because of doing it in person. Then when I moved out of my home into my studio, which has a more sort of professional feel to it than my home did, now I can make $1,500 or $2,000 in a session. Because people walk in and they sort of see it as a professional place, and they think
yeah, totally. You come in subconsciously like, oh, I'm going to spend some money here. This is because this is a professional. This is a great space. It's all part of the experience.
Exactly.
I hear that time and time again. Investing, whether you invest in a studio you lease space of or rent space, or taking your home studio to that next level, so then they walk in, it really sets the tone. It's so powerful.
But I think the other part of that I also wanted to talk about was that when I first had this idea of doing in-person sales sessions, the thought terrified me. I just thought it was so scary to do it.
Right.
I felt like I was going to be really selling to people. I don't like the idea of selling. And I also think, maybe it is just the Bay Area market, or maybe it's everywhere. But I don't think people like to feel like they're being sold to. And now I love my sales sessions. And it's funny because when I was thinking about my workflow before we talked, I realized that if I was dating my clients, right, if you put it into that analogy, I almost see the photo session as the flirtation when I'm trying to when I'm working towards the first date. We're flirting during the whole photo session. And the sales session is like a really incredibly awesome first date.
Yes.
And once I began thinking of it as a first date, suddenly it became fun. So I bring them into my studio, I make them an espresso or a latte, I offer them a glass of wine, I show them the images. They often cry, it's very common. And I just I literally don't sell. I have a price sheet that's in front of them, and we talk. And I'll say things to them like, tell me again how you met your dog, tell me again why that look was so emotional for you, what was it about that look? We just sort of chat. It becomes this really enjoyable thing. By the end, we're friends. They're inviting me to dinner. I usually hug them before we leave.
That's so great.
So I really had to make it fun for myself. It was the only way that I could do it. And now that it's fun, I'm able to make...
And you project that same energy, right? When we as photographers approach a sales session with awkwardness and dread, that same energy is just mirrored back to us, right?
Exactly.
But when you bring relaxation and joy and connection, then they just mirrored back to you. And genius. So when it comes, I like talking about reframing sales as education. From an education perspective, how early are you showing your products and prices? What stage of your session do you introduce that?
So when they call me on the phone, what I'll say is I'll say something along the lines of, my collection started at $400. And what's unusual about my prices is that includes $400 worth of artwork.
Yes.
They call it artwork, not pictures.
Of course.
Really important.
Absolutely.
And I usually say something like, well, can you give me some examples? And I'll give them some examples of what they can get with that. And typically what will happen at that point is they'll say something like, okay, well, what if I just want JPEGs of my pictures? Can I have a CD? Right? They almost always say that. And here's my response. I stop, I let there be silence, like wait for it silence, and then I say, I can give you something so much better.
Oh, that's gold. I love it. Right.
And then I say, I'm going to make you a customized mobile phone album. You can look at all of your images. You can share them on Facebook. You can email them out. And they get, the best thing is when I do it in person, because I can see like their eyes getting wide. And they get super excited.
Oh, that's so great.
And what I do with them is I actually sell the albums for $150,
Mm-hmm.
or if they spend $800 on artwork, then it's complimentary.
Yep.
And I don't say free, I see complimentary, because that sounds so much better.
These distinctions are so powerful in our language.
Mm-hmm.
They're really, really
Absolutely.
powerful. Yes.
And I will add that when I first priced it at $150, I priced it that way thinking, oh, no one's going to spend that much on it. You know, especially here in the Bay Area, because I have so many tech clients, and like most of them make apps.
Right.
So I thought no one's going to be impressed if they're an app maker.
Right.
You know, so that'll be like a block. They won't buy it, but they'll spend the money on prints. No, people buy it left and right. People who make apps are impressed at it, and they buy it left and right.
I love it.
That's awesome.
That's really good.
Then the second level is when they come in for their photo session. I have, as you can see behind me, I have all of my products out. So they're able to kind of look at it. And I don't talk about pricing yet,
Mm-hmm.
Although they have kind of a general idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I have actually emailed them an email list of some of my a la carte prices. Almost nobody looks at it.
Right.
But they're able to kind of look at everything. Then when they come in for their sales session, that's when I really begin to show them individual items.
Yep.
And I, you know, pick
And
it up.
the general idea is you've got like your a la carte, and it would be if they buy a package, they get so much more value versus buying the few things they want a la carte, right?
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Perfect.
And the main thing is that I found pretty early on that I had to lock them into a certain level.
Yes.
So they're locked in at $400. They can't go below that. Almost everybody spends more.
Yeah.
It's so unusual for them to just spend that and walk out.
Right.
I
And,
can't-
and you can tell, you be honest with people. Say, hey, look, our minimum is 400, but people usually spend more.
You know, I actually don't say that.
Interesting.
People say you should.
Yeah.
I never do. And I'll tell you,
You
most
should test
people,
it.
I should test it, but most people on the phone will say things like, well, I don't really want something on the wall. I just want, you know, the sticky album. I call it a custom mobile app, not
Right.
a sticky album.
Of course,
I would
yeah.
love that. And then they all come in and they spend anyway.
Yeah. Perfect.
And usually by the end they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spent so much. And I smile and I say, yeah, that's what everybody says.
It's just such a representation of the value they see, right? People spend money where
Right.
they see value. And when everybody says, "Oh, I can't afford it," we can. It's amazing the things we all can afford when it's something we really care about.
I think it's a good point. And, you know, I feel like I hear so many photographers saying, well, I want rich people. And I've got to tell you, I mean, not to say that rich people never come in my studio, because often they do, but I get a lot of people in here who don't have a ton of money, but they don't have any kids, they have dogs, and that's where they spend all of their money. And sometimes they do spend $1,000, $2,000 on their dog, because that's what they love, even if they don't make a ton.
Absolutely. Oh, I could go on and on and on. This is so much fun. Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome.
I think that just to echo some of the things that really matter today is just, I think talking with you over Skype, it just really resonates how powerful the in-person conversation can be. And to look at the relationships you've already have in your personal and professional lives, and on how there's opportunities there that you might not yet have tapped, and just explore that. And to be thinking about other possibilities, other people, how you can go be a difference in your community just for that reason alone, to go give back to your community in a powerful way, and then let the ways you can work with other people and other organizations come out of that.
Absolutely.
I'll leave with one tip. I don't know if you've heard it yet, but just in case other people haven't. Another way to get your foot in the door in those situations, I think that doing a session just for that business owner is so smart. In addition to that, you can do something like take the business's logo, and let's say it's an eye store or an eye glass store. You can take their logo, put it at the top, and put pictures of their products in their own sticky album.
Isn't that smart?
And then they can use it that way for other things in their business as a marketing tool for them. So
That's super smart.
you can run with that. We've got other videos in the podcast, in the blog, and on the podcast where I talk more about those examples. Use your imagination as a limit with the platform that is Sticky Albums. So, Ellen, if people want to learn more about working with you, because you've been working one-on-one. That's the transition here, is this importance of working one-on-one with people is so important. You've actually been mentoring other photographers one-on-one. If they were interested in something like that, where should they go to learn more?
So they should email me directly, and they can email me at ellen@jadorelechien.com. And I think that the main thing that I want people to take away from that is that when I work with other photographers, I don't have a templated set of things I talk about. What I do with them is we talk about where they're struggling in their business, what they're trying to build up. Are they an established portrait studio that wants to add dogs to it? Are they starting a new business in pet photography? What is it? And then I customize the consultation to them specifically.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
I'm muting myself. They're done mowing the lawn outside. Sorry about that, guys. I think we're rolling with it. That is huge. So we'll include that information in the blog post as well. So if you guys want to learn more, you know how to reach out to Ellen. Thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day.
I will. Thank you so much.
Cheers.